There are 4 radio stations that run Republican propaganda. They lie, I catch them in lies, misstatements, mistruths. And I think what we do is we bring the community together and say, you know, this reflects Minnesota values.
Democratic Visions is handmade in Eden Prairie and Minnetonka by DFL Senate District 42.
Conservative talk radio has been credited, or perhaps the better word is discredited, with having an alarming, perhaps unbalanced effect on voters, candidates, and Congress. Janet Robert runs KTNF AM950 Radio. Her Eden Prairie-based progressive talk radio station is becoming a hit. Janet Robert, welcome to Democratic Visions. By the way, how are your ratings these days?
Fabulous. We are up, up, up.
Your slogan for your station is, "What's left is the truth," which is pretty clever. Who came up with that, and how does that play out?
Well, I credit our staff. Our staff is very creative, and we work as a team, and we brainstorm a lot, and we come up with the different names. That's how we came up with the name Voice of Minnesota, actually.
AM 950's talk schedule is anchored early evenings by 2 locals, Mike McAtee of The Uptake, a web-based video news service, and Mark Haney, an attorney and political observer.
Which I guess if everyone else is driven out in...
Mornings and afternoons feature syndicated programs, The Stephanie Miller Show, The Ed Schultz Show, and The Tom Hartman Program. Weekends feature local lifestyle and political programs like Radio Cafe and Ring of Fire.
Tell me a little bit about the relationship between your station and Air America. Were you formally associated with Air America yourself?
Sort of indirectly. They actually just provided the network programming, and not all of our network programming. From day one, we carried Ed Schultz as well as Al Franken. Al Franken came from Air America. We picked up the name Air America because it was sort of a branded name people knew. So they were actually a provider of programming. But I've always been an independent radio station owner. It was sort of in the zeitgeist at the time, at the 2002 election. You know, Senator Daschle's life was threatened by things that had been said on the air by the right-wing talk show hosts. So he went to D.C. and said to the other senators, we need to do something, we need our own talk radio. They actually launched the Ed Schultz Show. A lot of people don't know that. And at the same time, there was a conference in D.C. that I attended. The people who launched the Air America Network were there too. I saw Ed speak. I knew immediately I wanted to put him on the air in Minnesota, that I knew he would do really well. Stephanie Miller was launched much later, and by a different network that said, hey, this is going to work. So all around the country, people were coming together and saying, we need talk radio. We now understand how important it is and the impact Republicans have been having.
Now, you in one of your former lives were a DFL candidate for Congress, is that correct?
That's right, 2002.
What caused you to decide to own and operate a radio station, particularly a talk radio station?
Well, you know, that year was a bad year. I like to forget that run for Congress, except that it was the catalyst for starting the talk radio station. That was a tough year for Minnesota when Senator Wellstone died. And Congressman Luther and I were both running out in the more suburban areas and rural areas of Minnesota. And I got to know him during that time, and we both lost. And I know his loss was directly because of that Wellstone Memorial, because of what the right-wing radio stations, the Republican radio stations, did to misinform the public about what was really going on there.
Well, just as a little bit of history, we had Rush Limbaugh go on the air nationally in 1988, and Fox News, I think, came on the air in 1996. And for a long time, us ardent Democrats were sort of at a loss for a voice to challenge the chatter that we used to get from those two organizations. Do you think that your station is filling a void in that respect?
Oh, absolutely. I remember in 2002, the tough thing about the election was between the time of the memorial and the election, all the radio stations in town, the TV stations, and Rush Limbaugh nationwide, which is very popular here in Minnesota, were telling everyone that all the Democrats were responsible, that we had planned this event to make Republicans look bad. And so what happened as a result of it was all the Democratic candidates from South Dakota, North Dakota to Wisconsin that were in our media market dropped 10 points in those 10 days. So it had a huge impact.
Your station brands itself the Voice of Minnesota. Why did you choose that moniker?
Well, because we feel like we're really the mainstream station, that we really reflect Minnesota values. I moved to Minnesota because I really love the sense of community and caring about one another. And I think the other 4 talk radio stations, and I count WCCO in this now because they're Don Shelby was mean to Democrats during the Wellstone aftermath. Now this new talk show host they have is very much dislikes Obama and criticizes him intensely. So there are 4 radio stations that run Republican propaganda. They lie, I catch them in lies, misstatements, mistruths. And I think what we do is we bring the community together and say, you know, this reflects Minnesota values.
Are you alone in this battlefront? What can the rest of us do to help you out?
Well, what's kept us on the air is our loyal listeners. By tuning in, by telling their friends, and most of all, by supporting our advertisers. And our advertisers say it's phenomenal, the results that they get from our listeners, because our listeners are so loyal.
Actually, I do that just the other way around. I listen to Rush Limbaugh once in a while, and I make it a point not to purchase anything from someone that advertises on his program. So give me a projection of where you think the station will be in 10 years.
Well, I think it's going to be pretty exciting. You know, we're into our 5th year now. We're going to have our 5th year anniversary this fall. And we're really doing well. Our ratings, we're catching on. People understand that we're mainstream. We have independents, Republicans listening who call us all the time and say thanks, you know, for what you're doing, because I'm getting information I can't get elsewhere. So I think 10 years from now, we're going to be a really solid, well-respected radio station.
AM950 is certainly broadcast within the Twin Cities. Is it available beyond the Twin Cities?
Well, people throughout Minnesota listen to it online. It's available. We stream online, and it's free. So people can tune in from all over Minnesota and catch it.
Joining Janet, Robert, and myself right now is Tommy Johnson. Tommy Johnson is one of the producers of Democratic Visions, a blogger, and a guest host on The Voice of Minnesota. Tommy, Janet, how does AM radio fit into this new world of social media and fading newspapers? What do you think, Tommy?
I think it's an essential part. As a blogger, people read it, but that's only one way that people absorb information. The other is they hear it, and that's where AM radio fits in. What I write, when it gets picked up or the stories I'm writing about gets picked up on AM radio, it really makes an impression in people's minds.
Does it ever go the other way? Do you pick up things on AM radio and you put them into your blog?
Well, absolutely. I was listening to Tom Hartman today and heard something that I'm going to be writing about tomorrow.
Janet, what do you think about that question?
Well, I'm excited that our bloggers are coming on to be guest hosts, because they do a lot of research, independent research, and then they bring it to our wider audience. And so it's a good fit for us. It brings listeners to our station at the same time. It provides our listeners with more valuable information. That's why we teamed up with the Uptake, the citizen journalists, and they go out and cover whatever they want to cover. So we give them our media credentials if they need it, and we work with them, and they come back and report in the 5 to 6 p.m. hour about what's going on in Minnesota or around the country that interests them.
I didn't hear anybody dispute the characterization of fading newspapers. Well, I, for one, read my newspapers online quite a bit. Is that par for the course as far as you're concerned, Tommy?
That's where I read the newspapers, but I guess what's even more important to me is my two a daughter that just graduated from college, another one that's in college. I don't know the last time when they've actually read a newspaper, and I see their friends, and their friends aren't reading newspapers either, but they are listening to radio.
So is there going to eventually be some sort of intersection between AM radio and the blogosphere?
I think that that's the way it's going on our side. I think the right-wing side has had a very coordinated blogger talk radio relationship. We're not there yet on the progressive side, but we're working on it.
And what do you think, Janet?
Well, I love the freedom and independence of the bloggers and the radio. I mean, we complement each other because we think and share the same values. We're not like the Republicans, where they send out talking points and everybody's got to follow it. You know, we believe in open communication, open voices, open up our telephone lines, letting everybody of every political persuasion talk on our radio station. You try to talk on a Republican station and not agree with them, they don't let you on the air, they cut you off. That's why they always want to make sure they know in advance what you're going to talk about. So we think we complement each other well, because we're opening up the community to voices outside just our host.